what really appeals to you. Try to get at the values, right, of that person. So a factual, a causative, and then a value-based question. And it's amazing what happens. I do this in a workshop that I do, a 2-day workshop. And you get some of the most intense responses, because this is how we introduce each other. We pair each other up, and ask this, do the interview, right? And it's amazing what you learn about these people, right? Now think about the proximity that we're in, especially in the Agile team, right? We're in the Obeya, we're in the team room, the great room, the war room, whatever, working together, maybe pairing, and I don't know this guy from Adam. I don't know what you're about, really, get to know, but make it happen, on a team level, right? So I like to do this for retrospective, as a kind of icebreaker, or just kind of relax, get into the zone. It's weird to just be like, hey, let's do the interview. It's Tuesday. It doesn't make any sense, right? So these are the kind of, you got to find a vector, right, for these kinds of things. And retrospective is an easy one. So get to know your team. So who's going to sum it up? We got quit, fire, find that. Come on, I can't remember this. Find that energy, right? Find that person who's got a little bit of passion. Focus on them. Stoke that fire, right? Healthy peer pressure, right? Because once you start to build that, it becomes a conflagration, right? And then now I need help. Import talent. Hire a ringer. Listening. Active listening. Context. Pay attention to what's to the. Be contrary. Be. Introduce levity, be that heyoka, right? Use data was in there, yeah. Evidence defeats doubt. What else? And I said something recently, it was get to know people on an individual basis. Get to know people, right? I kind of, I still write code, I still commit. I'm playing coach, but I don't, I've got the first principles, and I'm okay, I know this stuff, and I maintain my technical skills, but I don't see it as the most important thing. It's just not the most important thing, It is when you're learning that, I think when you're, a junior, right, but now the most important thing is working as a group, working as a team. When I pull a story with my pair, and I don't know where the hell this, I'm meant to even navigate in the code base to do this, that's a smell, that's a problem, right? That's a people problem. That's like a failure to communicate, All right, so I'll add a rule, and then I'm going to crowdsource. I'm sorry, I lied earlier. Sharing is caring, man. I'll tell you right now. We do this thing at version 1. It's awesome. We do a technical stand-up at 3 p.m. every day. So we have our stand-up, right, 10 a.m., where we kind of look at the board, and our stand-up is, after lots of effort, has become more about what's the game plan for today rather than what are the status updates. Forget the Scrum format, right? It's an okay place to start when you're building trust, but once you have that trust, yesterday I did this, today I did this, and my impediments are that's an okay place to start, but after a while that gets really stale. Who does a stand-up meeting? Is it boring? Does it suck? Is it useful? Why? Why are you participating in something that's not useful? Who's it for? Is it for you? No, it's probably for some project manager, right? So I would challenge that, right? But I think sharing is key. So I think oftentimes have another stand-up for developers, right? Sometimes these stand-ups can get really complicated, where it's like all this technical stuff's going back and forth, and it's like really only serving 2 or 3 people. Our stand-ups are huge. For once, we had everyone in the team earlier this week in the office, and it was like a circle that was, it was like 15 feet, 16 feet in diameter, just like packed with humans. And so, at that point, you got to kind of be brief, right? So we do a 3 p.m. stand-up where any pair can kind of bring what they've been working on and say, hey, we've been working on this. This is where it is. Here's from the outside what it looks like. Here's the code. Here's where it lives, that kind of thing. Extremely useful for collective ownership, being kind of one of the really holy grails of Agile, right? Is that anyone can work on any piece of code base. And keep in mind, a lot of this Agile stuff's about risk management, bus factor, right? If I walk off the curb and get hit by a bus, no big deal. I mean, everyone's sad, blah, but, the product will live on, it's independent from me. So I think sharing is key, finding ways to share. Now that 3 p.m. thing, man, I tell you what, as a coach, it took a lot of prodding to get people to do that on a regular basis. I mean, like, hey, let's do a 3 p.m., so a real active kind of involvement and like kind of promotion of that idea. Now, after a while, it kind of takes over, right? So sharing. So we have now quit, fire people, find allies, stoke that fire. Import talent, healthy peer pressure, use data, pay attention to the context, the organizational context. What's that? Active listening. Be contrary, introduce some levity, right? What's that?
Know your team.
Know your team and promote sharing, get sharing going, right? Collective ownership is kind of a big deal when it comes to Agile. To me, feedback probably, but it's kind of one of the points, It's like in XP, communication, right? That's, don't pay lip service to it. Like, get it going, Find mechanisms to put in place where it becomes indoctrinated, Who's got one? How do you make change?
Can I expand on one?
Sure.
Know your team. I read a book called Change is Your Competitive Advantage.
Okay.
And it talks about the fact that going through change is similar to the stages of grief. In that first there's this denial, like, yeah, you know what, this whole Agile transformation thing's not going to really change the way I do my job, or this whole new technology, whatever. And then they go through anger and frustration and depression and finally acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone goes through those phases at a different pace. And those of us who are farther along the change path are very, very impatient with those who have stalled at some stage. And if you don't deal with that person knowing which of those stages they're in, you will alienate them rather than help them along.
That awesome, right? I'll get the book from you after this. So what's the book?
It's called Change is Your Competitive Advantage.
Change is Your Competitive Advantage.
The premise of the book is that change is no longer something you do sometimes. It is
Right.
simply the state of business.
Yeah. Great. So I clued in on something you said, patience, right? Patience is key. Coaching is, so if you're trying to, so I say coaching, but I mean like change agency, right? You're trying to make a change, and however small. I mean, you could be hired to just to make a change, I mean, that's kind of on one extreme, right? And then, or you could, be kind of developer, right? Wants to just kind of do a little bit better job, write some cleaner code, not have to inherit crap, right? But I think that patience is so important, as far as like, coaching is not like, it's not like an A to Z thing. I've been at version 1 for almost 3 years. It's taken that long to make some of these changes, and there's still more to go. I mean, you keep finding these are. I mean, I could be there forever. Probably won't be, but it's this continuous thing, right? So I think that finding that patience and finding those small wins is key. Now I'll add to that. In business, there's this notion of efficiency of capital, right? Like, for example, It kind of pushes my buttons as a W-2 that employee that I get a tax return. You know, okay, great, I got $1,000 back from the IRS, but you know, that $1,000 could have been in an interest-bearing account this whole time, right? Okay, so I think there's the kind of parallel. You know, I'm speaking analogies, so hopefully everyone hasn't written me off right now, right? You know, but I think there's a parallel, like as far as coaching, it's like finding what will take. So Rachel Davies, she wrote the Agile Coaching Prague book, you know, UK coaching extraordinaire, has this notion of the consensus gradient. Now, consensus leadership, in my opinion, consensus leadership is not the greatest thing. It's terrible, right? It's a bad, it's not going to be effective long term. You're going to end up with a mediocre team. You are. You got to make a call. There's got to be a leader, right? And that leader might vary from time to time in a healthy team. That's cool. That's cool. And sometimes there will be consensus. But when you're trying to introduce something, let's just, you know, we'll pick the lame TDD example, right? Who isn't doing TDD now, you know? Right, go up to the whiteboard and make a gradient. It looks like this, right? With a line, with little like, and one end it's like 100% of the time we're all in. Yeah, let's do it. Woo! Consensus, right? And then at the other end of the gradient is no effing way, man. No way am I going to do this, right? And then have people dot vote up where they're going, right? You know, where do they feel about it? You know, how do they feel about this thing? And that, as a coach, will give you a sense of how much energy to put into the introduction of this practice. I'm not really into spending energy on something that's going to fail. I want to kind of know if I've got a chance to succeed. I want to find, and maybe it's something like smaller. I mean, that's too ambitious for this group. So let's start smaller. Let's stoke that fire a little bit. Let's get that kernel of, you know, that change addiction going, right? You know. All right. There's like a billion rules now. All right. So we have quit, we have fire, we have stoke the ember, find an ally. I always get stuck there. Stoke the ember, find an ally. Healthy peer pressure. Hire, listen. Be contrary, levity. Use data, right? Know your team. Sharing is caring. Care Bear. And pay attention to the context, right? The organizational context. Know where you sit in the organization. Patience. Okay. So I think just we'll kind of go through some of this stuff here. Has anyone used the disc? Kind of going away from the rules for a little bit. I'm gonna get sick of that. But yeah, we did this as a team, and it was pretty illuminating. It's cheap, you know. It's like $20 a person. It's like really cheap. Wow, color correction much. So this is me. This is I'm D is dominant, I is influential. So this is me prior to coming to version 1. You know, and it's just, I gotta watch it, right? I'm kind of like, I try to influence things. I mean, 100% influential, you know? Doesn't mean I'm very effective, but whatever. 34, the green, it's meant to be green, it's kind of a chartreuse. That is supportive. It's really kind of like your reception to change kind of thing. And C is conscientiousness or compliance. So if you have 100% C, that means you're the ultimate system thinker, right? You are like the architect, you know, kind of thing. Now, in development teams, what you'll find, let's go and see our friend Raj's disc profile. This is Raj, right, who is the kind of co-founder, developer, right, of the great guy. His C is like pegged. His S is pegged, and he hates change. His C is like, this guy could analyze anything, right? You know, whatever, you let him, right?